Good morning. So, because I served for many years on my town's planning board, I often get asked, as a matter of fact, I get asked multiple times a week to help people who either already own property in the town or people who are looking to purchase property in the town. I get asked basically to consult on what they can do and what they cannot do based on the land use. So I thought that I would help people, if you're curious, no matter where you live, about what you can do with the land that you own or your property, or if you're interested in what your neighbors or your, people who abut your property can do with theirs, you can find this out. If you have questions about it, you can obviously always ask the planning department of the town that you live in. But I wanted to kind of give you an idea of how to start figuring that out. So the first thing that you want to do for your property is find out what zone it's in. That's an important thing because zoning dictates the density. So what we mean by that is, I'm going to use Berwick as an example because I know it like the back of my hand. So in Berwick, we have a bunch of different zones, and they basically start at the town center, which is R1 zone. And even within that zone, we have an overlay district that is the downtown overlay. So downtown overlay is very dense, which means that you could fill every square inch of your property with housing or whatever fits in that zone. Then we have the R1 zone. The R1 zone, the lots are very close together and they're smaller lot sizes. Then we have the R2 zone. The R2 zone, the lot sizes are a little bit bigger. So you can see that we want to concentrate the density of population in the downtown area where the resources for the town are. And that is basically how towns are planned, or how they used to be planned. So once you find out, so how do you find out what zone your house is in? If you're in Berwick, or most towns have their tax cards online. So if you're in Berwick, you're not going to be able to see my screen, but you can go to Vision Government Services and just type in your property address into the search bar. That will tell you a lot about your property, but it will tell you what zone you're in. When you know what zone you're in, you can go to the land use ordinance. Now, almost all towns have zoning ordinances, land use ordinances. Depending on how big of a population it is and what type of government it is, will dictate exactly how that is organized for you. But in Berwick, because we're talking about this small town, we have a land use ordinance. And that dictates what you can do with your land. The land use ordinance is basically developed by the townspeople and the planning board and the select board, and then it's always voted on. So anything that's in the land use ordinance has been voted on and approved by the townspeople. It's not something that's just made up. Once you know what zone you're in, for instance, I know I'm in the R1 zone. My house is in the R1 zone. You can go to page 34 of Berwick's land use ordinance, but most ordinances have this table, and it's the land use table. And you can basically go by zone, and you can look down and see all the different potential uses in your zone. And you can see if the use that you are wanting or that you're thinking about fits with what you can do in your zone. So for instance, in R1, I wish I turned off maybe I can. In R1, I can have, so it goes by, it says A for allowed. If there's an A in Berwick, it's an allowed use, and that means you can just do it. You don't need to get anybody's permission to do it, as long as you fit the other parameters. If there's a C, it's a conditional use, and that means that you have to go see the planning office. You probably have to speak to the planning board about it. It means that you will be able to do it if it's a conditional use, but there may be conditions on it. And conditions are just things to protect the town and to protect the abutters. So there might be screening conditions. There are all kinds of things they can put on there. And then if it's an X, it's not allowed. So in R1, or if there's a P, you just need a permit for it. In R1, you can have a single family house permitted. A multifamily dwelling is a C, so you have to have a conditional use permit. You have to go see the planning board if you want to put a multifamily on there. What's not allowed in R1? Medical marijuana co-ops are not allowed in R1. So you can go through and look at all of this. Now there are further conditions. Just because it's on the table does not mean you can automatically do it. there's requirements, dimensional requirements in the land use ordinance. So depending on if you have town water and sewer, or if you have a septic and a well, there's lot size requirements. There are setback requirements, and there is building height requirements, maximum lot coverage requirements. So here's one thing that's come up recently. I had somebody in the, I forget what zone they were in. They may be in RCI. They have a lot of acreage. The property already has a couple of duplexes on it, and they're thinking about building another house out back because they have so many acres. Well, there is a minimum dimensional, even though that they could do that legally, the use is there, they have to have the minimum lot size for that zone per dwelling. So even if it's a duplex, if the minimum lot size is 2 acres, you need 4 acres because there's 2 dwellings on that. So you can't put a duplex on a 2-acre lot out there because you need the 2 times the minimum lot size for a dwelling. So that's one way to start to delve into what you can do with your land, or if you are thinking about buying land or a property, what can be done with that property. Or if you abut property and you're wondering what can be done with it, this is a good way to go in and look. Or even if you're buying property and you're like, oh wow, there's 8,000 acres next door to me that's unused. What can they do with it? Here's a good way to find out. If you've got questions about that, you can always reach out to me. I'm pretty well versed on this stuff, and I know how to find the answers if I don't have them. I certainly do not have all the answers, but I do know how to get them. You can always reach out to your planning department for whatever town you are in. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message. If you're watching this on YouTube, all of my contact information is below. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. It's the first day of spring. Happy spring.